From Canada, Montreal, we told now with Arnold August, analyst, specialist of North American issues, Cuba, Venezuela, Latin America. Welcome to From the South, Professor.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with teleSUR.
Also for us, Professor, what's your opinion about the involvement of the U.S. government in the protests held in Cuba on July 11 that said the Cuban government in recent days?
It is a fact, even by their own admission, that they are involved in the latest attempt to subvert the Cuban Revolution. For example, in March, just a few months ago, March 2021, the White House Assistant Secretary, or the Secretary for the State Department, was proud to announce that she had an online meeting with the so-called San Isidro movement. And she gave full support for their slogan, of course, which is going on all over Cuba and internationally. So that was the first step. But since then, that was in March, but since then, we know that the United States has been involved in trying to provoke these activities inside Cuba with the hashtag SOS Cuba, which is really the real meaning of that is appealing to foreign powers, especially the United States, come and help us in Cuba, even if it is by military intervention. So the United States is very deeply involved. And of course, they used their allies in Spain, who were very active in promoting the SOS Cuba hashtag with very sophisticated means of carrying out automatic retweets, hundreds of retweets by second at that specific time on July 10th and July 11th. So of course, there's no surprise that Cubans have a lot of access to internet, but unfortunately, I guess some of them, a very small minority, were duped into the SOS Cuba appeal. So United States, yes, is definitely involved. Bruno Rodriguez said, I think yesterday, that as far as he knows, this started in June 10th in the United States. In other words, this whole movement is not from Cuba. It does not spring. It is not an organic movement from Cuba. Rather, it has been manufactured in the United States with the help of Spain.
Professor, according to what happened in the world in this subject, can we expect in the coming days the continuation of this non-conventional warfare against Cuba from the U.S. government? What do you think?
Yes, I don't think the United States, they suffered a defeat, because apparently from the images that I see from teleSUR and from other sources in Cuba, things are relatively calm now. In other words, they had that one very small explosion last Sunday, but things are very calm now. And the Cuban media are very busy informing the people, the citizens, about this and what it is all about. But unfortunately, I don't think that the Biden administration is interested in listening to, for example, all of the countries in the world, except of course the United States and Israel, is not listening to that international appeal to lift the blockade against Cuba. They, in fact, are strengthening it, even in the terrible situation that has been developed even further as a result of the COVID-19 situation in Havana. I don't think that the Biden administration is going to change its mind unless the forces within the United States, a cross-section of forces in the United States, from the Congress, the numerous friendship groups in the United States, and as well as people who are involved in trade and travel with Cuba, raise their voice, say, look, instead of doing this, what you are doing now, trying to foment an so-called uprising in Cuba, why do you not just lift the blockade? The United States is quite ironic. They say, well, Cuba uses the blockade as a pretext for maintaining their sovereignty and maintaining their own system. But myself and other people are asking, well, if this is a pretext, the United States can simply lift the blockade now.
Yeah.
Biden has all the powers to lift the 240 measures carried out by Trump before him, lift all of those measures and substantially reduce the effects of the blockade against the Cuban people.
So the excuse will be done, actually, Professor. Another question for you. The U.S. government accused Cuba of not protecting human rights. However, are the human rights totally protected in U.S., according to your opinion, of course?
Yes, of course. This is perhaps one of the most gross and cynical accusation against Cuba, that it doesn't protect human rights, it does not foster human rights in Cuba. But while Cuba is a country, if we're talking about the pandemic, social measures, etc., despite the current situation of the COVID-19 spike, Cuba has more than any other country in Latin America, even more so than the United States, has been developing, protecting the human right of the Cuban people to life, to live despite the pandemic. And when United States talks about human rights, how hypocritical can you be? They're calling out Cuba now, but where was Biden? Where is Biden with regards to the massacres that are taking place in Colombia and other countries in Latin America? Their only focus is on Cuba. Why? They do not want Cuba to be sovereign, and this has been going on since 1959. They do not want Cuba to develop its social system, which, as a result of the pandemic and the complete failure of the capitalist system in the United States, is increasingly becoming a model, a source of inspiration for people in the United States and around the world, how to combat the COVID-19 and how to develop human rights. For example, despite all of the economic hardships, all these measures by Trump, which Biden has continued, despite that, Cuba still has its education system for free, health system for free. What else do you want? And I've been living on and off in Cuba for several years, since 1997, when I wrote my first book. Now, if there is a country in the world that encourages and carries out debate on different views, different opposing viewpoints, it's Cuba. I think you may be living in Cuba. It is a vibrant place for discussion and debate. Of course, if someone wants to come along and say, well, I'm against the Cuban government, let's organize against the Cuban government. Well, this is not part of the debate. The debate going on amongst the people in Cuba now, as in previous such cases, is how to improve their system, how to solve various problems. That debate is going on. And, I think a fundamental thing of human rights is the right of people to express themselves. And that's what they do in Cuba. They do express themselves in meetings and many activities over the last few months and years. Whereas in the United States, Biden talks about, listening to others, listening to the point of others, but they have not listened to the voice of the virtual entire international community to lift the blockade against Cuba. I think that the current situation now that is going on, I've been watching these type of events over several decades, but the disinformation against Cuba now is at the highest point I've seen for years. All of the reporting, whether it's from those who have been accredited journalists in Havana, outside Havana, everywhere, they mention everything except the American blockade against Cuba, which is the main cause of frustration, economic hardship. And many of the people came out to demonstrate the other day as a result of the hardships that have been caused by the blockade. I mean, when Diaz-Canel had the guts and the courage to go to Los Baños, outside of Havana, directly, personally, without really bodyguards, to speak to the people there. And in a press conference after that, he said, well, yes, we know there are problems, but some people are confused. Even amongst revolutionaries, there is some confusion. So here you go, another example how Cuba fosters and develops debate and discussion. And I think that Cuba is a model for the protection of human rights, the development of human rights, but not how the Americans see human rights. Americans see human rights only as a right the right of the wealthy to accumulate their riches, to carry, even to the extent of carrying out wars of aggression against peoples of the world. For them, this is okay. There's no problem there. But Cuba has another conception of human rights, and the United States and other countries has to express their conception of human rights.
Professor, thank you so much for your time for teleSUR. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.